Welcome to the Immigration Therapist Podcast, a podcast for immigration attorneys that want to learn more about the emotional and psychological aspects of evaluations, and for therapists that want to learn more about immigration evaluations. So today, we are going to talk about interviewing closed off clients. So this is both for therapists and for attorneys. You know, what to do when you're dealing with a client who's very closed off, who just doesn't open up about their emotions and they're not really letting you in. Obviously, for therapists, this is, a big issue because that's what we're doing. We're assessing the client's emotional and psychological world. So if they're closed off, I mean, it's half of our job is goes down the drain because we need them to open up. And then obviously for attorneys who are not trained in this realm of collecting the client's emotional world and getting details and that rely on their openness, obviously this can also be tough and possibly affect their immigration case. So that's what I want to talk about today. So I came up with, of course, there's more, but I came up with 5 reasons why clients might be closed off. Meaning closed off to their feelings. So the first reason is shame. They're ashamed of what happened. Usually you'll see this in cases that have to do with trauma. So your trauma-based evaluations. So for example, VAWA, U visa, T visa, depending on what happened when it comes to asylum, you'll see a lot of shame. They're ashamed of what happened. They've, as therapists, trauma-focused therapists, we know that trauma is usually internalized. So trauma survivors internalize blame and, there's a lot of shame. Shame is the number one symptom of trauma. So a lot of these clients will have internalized the shame and they'll be too ashamed, too embarrassed to talk about what happened. So that's number one, first reason. Second reason, not enough rapport. I remember in grad school, we learned that rapport is 50% of therapy. So if, half of therapy is establishing rapport, usually my rule of thumb in therapy is it takes me about 4 to 6 sessions to establish good rapport with the client for them to feel comfortable, for therapeutic intimacy to be established, 4 to 6 for the average client. Now, we don't have that luxury when dealing with, immigration clients when we're doing their evaluations. We don't have that luxury. We're not there to do therapy. We're just here to do an immigration evaluation, an assessment, and, depending on how many sessions, the therapist takes, that's all you got. You only have the sessions and you go straight to business, straight to talking about what happened. So you don't really get to establish enough rapport. And then for attorneys, that's even worse because, of course, they're there to represent the client. A lot of their work is based on trust and honesty, but a lot of interviews with attorneys just lack the therapeutic bond, the therapeutic setting. And that's not the attorney's fault per se, because that's not their profession. So rapport building, establishing that bond, that safety, that protective environment for the client, is very, very important. So, but again, we're only listing the reasons here. So number 2, we don't have enough rapport with the client. Number 3, gender. So this is also another reason why the client might be closed off. So for example, again, as therapists, we know the statistics. We know that, for example, for domestic violence, males are least likely to report abuse just because of the culture issues, especially when they come from other countries like Latin-based countries, or other countries that are very patriarchal, not just Latin America, but obviously, other countries that are very patriarchal, who have this machismo tone to the culture. As I've mentioned before, I'm Brazilian, so Brazil is considered a very machista country, very misogynistic. So men aren't very likely to talk about the abuse because they can come off as fragile, vulnerable, and it goes against the culture of the toxic masculinity. So gender might be an issue. For example, like I said, if you're dealing with a VAWA case, I've seen many male clients who just, they struggle with opening up. They struggle with the sadness that comes, the grief that comes with having experienced emotional abuse, financial abuse, and physical abuse in some cases. The fourth reason I came up with for why clients have difficulty being open is they just can't connect with the reality of the evaluation. So, for example, I see this a lot on hardship cases, hardship evaluations for waiver cases. So these are actually, in my opinion, the toughest ones. These cases are when clients come in and they really do not connect with the idea. Because hardship cases are waiver, I keep calling it hardship cases, but they're waiver cases. We're doing the hardship evaluation. So these cases, the citizen or the resident comes in and they're not the applicant. They're not the attorney's, the client. They're not the ones, the attorney's clients. They're not the ones applying with immigration whose status is on the line, who possibly face deportation. They're not the ones who face all of that. So even though they do feel for their spouses, they might be very aware, they don't feel it. They don't know what it's like to drive without a driver's license. They don't know what it's like to possibly, lose everything that you worked for. They might connect with the idea of, maybe my spouse will be deported, but we'll figure it out. This is America. What I love about this country, and I'm not going to go into political issues, but what I love about America is that, the patriotism, the security, the feeling of safety that most people get out of, having a stable, structured, for the most part, economy and living arrangements and structure, So a lot of these, or maybe they're immigrants that, they've been through the immigration process, but a long time ago. So they don't really, it's been a long time. So they really don't, they might remember cognitively, but not emotionally. Or another reason is that it's just not their day to day. You wake up and you go to sleep with your spouse next to you. You leave the house, they're there. You come home, they're there. You have dinner together every night. You make plans for the weekends. So, in these hardship evaluations, your client, they're coming in and they're not really feeling the weight, the burden of not having their spouse here in most hardship cases, because some hardship evaluations, the spouse or the child might already be in their, country. So they might already be separated. So those hardship evaluations, in those cases, yes, they're very easy. So yeah, the clients will definitely be in their feelings. They'll be feeling it. So I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the ones where there hasn't been a separation yet. So they're not feeling it. So that's my fourth reason why clients just come in and they might be closed off or not connected to the feeling, to the symptoms. And then number five, the fifth reason why clients might be closed off is because of fear. Keep in mind, when you're dealing with undocumented clients, there's this lack of safety. There's this risk that they feel at all times. It consumes every single activity that they do. Either, when it comes to driving, getting behind the wheel every single time because, and having to watch out for the police because they're undocumented and they shouldn't be driving, from going to work every day and maybe accepting a lower wage because they're undocumented, or, the indecision about the future. They don't know what's going to happen in the future. If they can't buy a house, they can't, should they start a family? They don't know if they're going to be here. So there's a lot of fear involved with undocumented clients. There's also the fear that you'll see from clients that crossed into the country. Maybe you're asylum clients, maybe, all of them actually, but especially if they've crossed into the country, if they've entered illegally, so they'll already have this feeling of fear. They were probably caught at the border, so they have a court coming up, or they have, they know what it's like to flee immigration and be in dangerous scenarios where they might be apprehended or detained. So you'll have a lot of fear. So what I get a lot with these kind of clients are, they're afraid of having the light shined on them and it not working out and them getting deported, which is what they've been avoiding. They want to avoid in the first place. Another fear is you'll see a lot of this in, for example, domestic violence. Trauma-focused therapists know what trauma bond is. And, for example, if the client's still very much trauma bonded and dissociate and they still have the cognitive dissociation of understanding, radically accepting their situation, that yes, they've been through abuse, and they're still emotionally attached to their abuser. So they're afraid. So you'll get a lot of questions like, oh, is this going to harm my spouse in any way? I don't want word to get back to them. I don't want them to be harmed. So you'll see clearly the trauma bond there, in these, for example, VAWA clients. So these are the 5 reasons why that I've come up with. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There might be more. There's probably more, but these are the 5 main reasons why your clients might be closed off in terms of being open to sharing. And yeah, so again, our jobs as trained therapists are to work with them, working against, for example, the odds, for example, not having enough rapport. Yeah, the odds are against us. But I believe that keeping these 5 items in mind when interviewing clients will, if we're aware of these issues, we can at least address them. For example, number 2, we can say, look, I know you just met me. I know you just came in. You probably haven't done therapy before, but, and I want to acknowledge that this is a new environment for you. So as therapists, we've been trained on how to disarm clients. And I think it'll help more if we know, what might be the reasons why they're closed off in the first place. So I hope this helps both therapists and attorneys. And as usual, you can catch us online on social media at Center. Gosh, I never know this. I promise one day. But you can find us on our website, obviously, or on social media at immigration_evaluations_center. I will see you next time. Thank you.